Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the 3-Digit World Cup. My name is gamicrayola, and unfortunately, we're kind of waiting on my co-cast willwam here. So, do tolerate my solo cast for just a little bit. We join in this matchup. It's going to be Brazil versus South Korea, Seed 8 versus Seed 9 on paper. Oh no, Seed 6 versus Seed 8. Pardon me. On paper, one of the closer matches that we're gonna have this week, and in particular, I'm very excited to see how this matchup goes. Right, these two teams have, you know, sort of pretty generic stories in the World Cup, or at least Brazil has a pretty generic story in the World Cup. Swept their opponent in the round of 16, which was Iberia, if I'm not mistaken, Seed 16. Swept them 6-3, if I remember correctly. Oh wait, no, I don't think that's correct. Hold on, that's not correct. Let me do a quick check so that I actually know what I'm talking about. Oh no, I was right. In round 16, they swept their opponent 6-3, Iberia, Seed 8 versus Seed 9, a pretty clean victory. And then proceeded to go up against the United States, and we all know how going up against the United States goes, so I'm not gonna hold that loss against them. But now they come up to face up against South Korea. Now this is a rather weird thing to look at, right? Because South Korea has been having a pretty bumpy ride this previous World Cup. The two-time champions are really struggling this World Cup, having lost both Forum and Fragrance of Page from their previous rosters. So a lot of question marks are in the air for this entire South Korean roster. And for that reason, they do seem to be a lot shakier than they have been last year. In fact, I believe they lost against France, who was 5 seats under them in the round of 16 on tiebreaker as well. So consistency is definitely a big gray area for South Korea that they do not seem to be very strong on. And I think for that reason, Brazil actually have a lot of room to capitalize in that sense. But to talk a little bit about team dynamics going to this, right? South Korea and Brazil, both of them sort of run a very similar team composition or team dynamic, where you will see, you know, a core squad of 3 really strong arming a lot of their picks, and then you have, you know, 1 or 2 players filling in the edges. On the side of Brazil, you have, of course, Korean Maliko, but you also have Izzy, who's been a real up-and-comer for this Brazilian roster, alongside Q to round off that 3-man core for Brazil. And on the side of South Korea, of course, you have Mamia Coco and Allegrisimo, obviously. And then the rest of their 4 players, you know, you sort of just slot them in wherever. I think South Korea's 2 anchors really lie in the Mamia Coco and Allegrisimo. And, you know, to a lesser extent, Tripoli or Croatia as well. But the rest of their 3 players really just come in for, you know, the occasional control pick, hidden pick, or speed pick. But yeah, it looks like we're going to get straight into the bans, which will paint us a pretty good story as to what the trajectory of this matchup will be. And it looks like Brazil is going to be taking out the Hidden 3 and the Free Mod 3, very understandable, you know, taking out the low AR Hidden 2 and the anti-mod Free Mod as well. So yeah, makes a lot of sense going up against a roster like South Korea, you know, colloquially known as one of the strongest countries when it comes to any sort of control skill set. Meanwhile, South Korea looking to take out the speed in the Mod 5, if I'm not mistaken, alongside the wide angle aim 3 Mod 1. That's rather interesting. I would have definitely expected them to go into a double time pick, not so much so because I think Brazil is particularly strong at the double times. I think, if anything, they do seem to struggle quite a lot on the DTs. But I would have definitely expected South Korea to take it out. But I mean, looking at the scores, it does paint a picture as the picture that's painted is sort of both of these countries being rather weak when it comes to both the DTs. So, you know, when both of your teams don't want to touch the speed, perhaps the best thing to do is to just leave it open. As we are talking, however, we are gonna jumpstart this matchup with the Free Mod 4 coming in. It's gonna be Amanita by Marmalade Busher. This is a classic. This is a classic map. I believe this is a very cookie cutter bread and butter mechanics test, right? It has some aim, has some tapping, really doesn't lean too heavily into any other side. It's not like you're gonna see cross screen jumps or really intense stamina sections. In fact, this map clocks in at a rather box standard, rather comfortable 194 BPM as well. So nothing too out of the ordinary, especially at least when you look at the map stats. Really, it's just going to be a very blanket test of your comfort when it comes to the various mods, right? The hard rocks, the hidden, as well as a big consistency check and a nerve control check on the no mods. It does kind of interest me that South Korea goes for this pick so early. This is sort of one of those picks where I definitely see it coming in a later stage of the map pool, because it's rather RNG, and if anything, it's pretty accessible, all things considered, right? South Korea going into this pick is really looking to play towards their consistency, and frankly speaking, I don't know if that's the best bet, considering South Korea has been, as I said before, rather shaky on the consistency, right? But looks like our starting lineups for both rosters are going to be fielded. Brazil bringing in their core three in Korean Malico, Shikyu, and Izzy, whereas South Korea bringing in Amamiya Kokoro, Chipori, and Allegrissimo. So, you know, both teams instantly starting off this matchup with their A game. And yeah, good luck, have fun to coming in chat. The map is gonna slowly get loaded in, and here we go. It's gonna be Amanita. This is 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Really the most fundamentals checks in this pool. Shikyu gonna be the first one to go down, alongside Chipori gonna be the next one to trade it up. The Nomon Anchor going up for South Korea. Not quite ideal when you compare it to Shikyu's miss on the hidden, but you know, there is still a lot of leg room to go in this map. There's a lot of momentum building right now as both teams accustom themselves to the tempo of this map. And yeah, you know, nothing much more to comment about, as you know, we're slowly breaking into more diverse patterning. But yeah, we're just filling for time right now, and the scoreline is going to continue to stagnate as we wait for that first miss to come in, as we wait for the first KI to come in. But all things considered, this off KI is pretty damn intense, as Chipori finds a miss as I say that, but it is going to be added up by Izzy and Korean Malico now, and that is going to be significant for the lineup of South Korea, and they're seeing a complete wipe on Brazil, whereas Allegrissimo and Amamiya Kokoro are holding strong with their FCs. Amamiya Kokoro might find a miss. That's a huge fall from Brazil, and Amamiya Kokoro still stays strong on the hard rock as always. That we move out of that first KI, but they aren't out of the clear just yet. In fact, even in the off KIs, the tapping really gets taken up a notch, and it looks like Shikyu is going to succumb, but so does Amamiya Kokoro and Allegrissimo. I mean, Shikyu taking down 2, that is going to be significant, but the recovery is just not there from Brazil. The scoreline is still in reach, however. It is only a pretty manageable 150k, and if we see more misses coming in from Allegrissimo, it might still be doable, but Shikyu not having the best time when it comes to that hidden flow aim, and who can blame him? It's so devilish, these flow aim patterns. Is he going to be another one to add to the toll? Not quite what you want to see. It's just going to be Korean Malico versus Chipori right now, and as the map takes itself up a notch, Chipori and Korean Malico still are the only ones of their respective teams to hold. Allegrissimo, a looming threat right behind him, pushing forward with that 200 combo on the hard rock. And I think if things remain constant at this juncture, which I think they will, honestly, South Korea are very poised to take this point, and Korean Malico finds the miss. That's exactly what they needed. And with that, they have full agency, full control of the scoreline as Chipori continues to push forward with a 700 combo. Allegrissimo finding the miss, but it seems as though the early misses, the early struggles in Chipori do not mean anything whatsoever, as they are looking to top score the lobby going into the last quarter of the map. Finally finds a miss, but that is more than enough damage dealt to that scoreline, and that's going to be an easy first point going to South Korea. Exactly what you want to see from them. And I think this pick, winning this pick, is pretty significant because it does highlight a lot of the weaknesses coming in from Team Brazil, right? It highlights a potential hidden weakness. And you know, considering that they did decide to go for that hidden 3 ban, perhaps it could be something that South Korea look to play into in the later stages of this match, or maybe even their next pick being one of the hiddens. There is a lot of room to go for this matchup. It is a 1st to 7 series, so early first pick, very good tempo starter for South Korea. Very good kickstarter point. Nice and confident, nice and consistent, especially coming in from Chipori and Allegrissimo throughout the entire map. And yeah, we're back to the board. The pick is going to go back into the hands of Brazil, and now the question is, what will they go for? You can definitely see Brazil playing into something like a hard rock. I think all in all, South Korea have been seeming to be slightly weaker when it comes to the two mods. They seem to be slightly weaker when it comes to the hard rocks. But even then, I mean, they do seem pretty scary on it. The thing, right, is when you compare these two lineups, there's not really anything that you can specifically pinpoint Brazil having an advantage over, right? These two teams seem pretty similar in both their weaknesses and their strengths, right? It's not like one country is particularly strong at anything that the other country is. And it looks like we are going to see a no more 2 pick coming out from Brazil. Now, this is a pretty interesting one, and I think it's a pretty expected one, no less. This is a mechanics test at 180 BPM. A lot of flowing to be desired in this kind of map, alongside, you know, just some standard jumps here and there. Once again, interestingly enough, it's going to be another sort of very blanket slate mechanics test, right? Of course, it's pretty different from the 3 mod 4, where 3 mod 4's flowing was more so XL, DCL was more, you know, inconsistent, and in that inconsistency is where you're supposed to find the challenge of the map. This map features a lot of awkward patterning. I think there are a lot of patterns to this map. There are a lot of jumps in this map, especially, that just simply don't quite feel right. You know, they're just a little bit offset of what you'd normally expect. And the streams in this map, there are a lot of 180 BPM streams, but the flowing is where it really gets turned up a notch, right? Relatively low BPM when it comes to the streams, but it definitely makes up in the variety of the streams. And of course, there are definitely these flowing patterns are going to be a lot longer than what we saw from Amanita. Amanita was more burst focused, but this map is more stream focused. There are the XL decels in this map are a lot more pronounced in this map than that of 3 mod 4. And for that reason, we go to why I think this is a bit of a question mark pick, because comparing this map to last round, I think where this, you know, blanket mechanics test is concerned, I do think South Korea have Brazil pretty much beat when it came to, you know, that 3 mod 4 pick, right? It was such a decisive pick going in favor of South Korea. And considering how, you know, they won on that pick, I don't know if going for a map that's basically sort of an upgrade from your last is really the play. I'm saying that thinking about Shakyu, you know, finding a bunch of chain misses throughout a lot of the flowing sections in that previous map. But alas, we can only wait and see what is to come. It looks like South Korea are going to be bringing in My Keyboard alongside Brazil, subbing in Monty for this map. So we're going to have to see if, you know, perhaps it was the mods that was the deciding factor for that last pick. Because if Brazil wins this pick, I mean, all of that advantage, all of the map pool that was open from that 3 mod 4 pick will now be closed. You know, the mechanics side of things will still be left in a sort of limbo state. So this is a pretty pivotal point for Brazil right now, especially being their first pick. They want to get something consistent on the board. Early stages of the map, it looks like everybody is exercising confidence. I mean, it's expected. Map is 180 BPM, it's just in that perfect Goldilocks zone when it comes to the BPM. But when the map picks up in terms of the flowing, when it picks up in terms of the aim, that's definitely where it's going to, where we're going to expect to see some misses. And as it stands right now, both teams dead even when it comes to the score. I mean, that's how close you can get, bro. Every single player just matching up against every single accuracy right now. Here we go, and the first build-up gonna clock in the first of the cuts, the first of the XL patterns come, and it catches off My Keyboard and Shakyu, both gonna be the first one to miss for their respective countries. Alegrissimo gonna be the next one to add to the toll as the map begins to open up. Chipori, the last one from South Korea with a combo to go down, and with that, Monty and Izzy proving that previous pick was simply just a modded fluke as they hold 2 FCs against South Korea's none. 800 combo and counting. I mean, this is already such a massive score lead going in favor of the left side. It's going to grow to a monumental 200k, and with no recovery from South Korea, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to claw their way back. Izzy might find a miss, and that is going to slow down the bleeding, but it's going to be traded up by Chipori's And with Shaquille just cancelling out any sort of recovery, he's just leaving so much room for Monte to continue to push the speed further and further to the left side. Highest accuracy and highest combo in the lobby. 99.7. I mean, what are we doing? We're moving into sort of a jump section of the map, so it is going to be a slight build down, but not for long as the flowing patterns start to clock in. Izzy's gonna find quite a few misses, and with that miss from Monty, hold up, South Korea suddenly looking scarier and scarier. Chipori might find a miss, but Mikeybo and Allegrissimo are strong in the recovery. Shaquille is trying their best to hold them off, but Shaquille finds a chain miss like he did last round. It could spell disaster for the Brazilian scoreline, and there goes the miss from Shaquille as Mikeybo and Allegrissimo now have the combo lead, but Mikeybo isn't gonna get far, and it's just gonna be up to Allegrissimo to make the difference for his team. Now the win condition for South Korea, and with a quarter of the map left in the tank, there might still be enough. Allegrissimo 900 combo and counting, going through all these cut patterns flawlessly. XL, D-Cell completely eating them all up. Linear patterns as well. And with no combo on the side, Brazil, Izzy, and Monte are going to be continuing to get battered on their knees as Allegrissimo continues to push the scoreline further and further to the right side, bringing it below that 200k margin. But as Allegrissimo finds a miss, that's just how the cookie crumbles. Such a pivotal score that just gets lost in an instant. I mean, Mikeybo and Chipori are trying their best to bring it back, right? I mean, they're still sitting above that 500 combo mark, but Shaquille is finding that stability and just completely denying any sort of recovery from these two players as we move into the last sections of the match. Shaquille might find a miss, but the early effort from Monte in particular is what's going to keep Brazil strong in the game and taking a first point on their first pick. And yeah, that's gonna set the stage, gonna set the tone for this match to come. I mean, just these first few picks haven't really told us much, right? South Korea strong on the mods, yada yada yada. Brazil strong when it comes to no mod. Oh right, sure. The only real conclusion that I can draw from these two picks, or I can evaluate from these two picks at this juncture, is that South Korea is just stronger on the mods. Right, but maybe not even on air. Maybe it's just on the free mods. You know, maybe they're just stronger when it comes to their roster diversity on the mods, because we don't exactly know how these teams will interact on the Hard Rock pool. And I like to draw comparisons to the qualifiers results, but then again, we're getting to the SR, we're getting to the semi-finals SR where we're hitting above the threshold of qualifiers. So there's only so much that qualifiers can tell us at this juncture, right? But yeah, the pick is going to go back into the hands of South Korea. And frankly speaking, I think the hidden pick makes a lot of sense, but they do in fact go for the Hard Rock instead. And I like this Hard Rock pick. I think this Hard Rock pick makes a lot of sense. This is Nawashi, the Fascinating Cat's Eye. There's nothing out of the ordinary if you know what Nawashi's composition style is. You know, it's a lot of polyrhythm, a lot of weird flow. I think every single Nawashi map sort of gets that same vibe. You know, it's a lot of aim control and a lot of rhythm control or rhythm reading, all mixed into one. You know, this map features a lot of weird flowing, a lot of diversity when it comes to, you know, the occasional stats here and there. And then in case that wasn't enough, you know, we throw in some rhythm into the mix, and in case that wasn't enough, we throw on Hard Rock, we throw on that OD10, so you need to be sure that you are absolutely spot on when it comes to your understanding of the rhythm for this map. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this Hard Rock 3 pick personally, because I think I think this is the first time in this match that we're going to break into that control pool, and it's going to be a pretty good indicator as to how strong Brazil is on control in particular, right? We all know South Korea to be one of the strongest teams in the world when it comes to control, but we don't exactly know how well Brazil can size up to them. And at the same time, right, given how Brazil won on that no mod, we need Brazil to find some other aspect in the mods to break even against South Korea, because we can't just have South Korea running a show on all of the mods. That'd just be so many points, just so many free points for South Korea to steal. So yeah, Brazil. This pick is gonna give us quite a lot of information as to what Brazil's game plan could be moving forward in this match. But yeah, I think the player to look out for in this map is definitely going to be Allegrissimo. I could definitely see them doing some work in this, and I do believe with that, we should be seeing my co-cast joining very, very soon. And here he is, willwam. How are you doing, man? We're sort of you joined in at the right time. You know, I believe we saw two pretty decisive picks go the way of South Korea and Brazil. We saw the free mod 4 getting picked up by South Korea, that was Amanita, and then a no mod 2 pick coming in from Brazil. So two rather consistency, mechanics-driven maps, albeit of course one with no mod and one with all the mods. So yeah, not a lot of information has been spilled, but South Korea are gonna go for their hard rock 3 pick. So I mean, since you just joined, do you have any thoughts on this pick?
I mean, I think, you kind of mentioned breaking into the control pool at this stage, but I would like to mention, I would say the no mod 2 and free mod 4, are kind of like control adjacent, right? They're not, the raw mechanic skill sets as opposed to, maybe like a DT1 or like a raw speed map or something like that. So I think it is going to be interesting to see what team is favored on like a pure control pick like this. But honestly, I don't really have much to say at this very juncture.
Yeah, I mean, it took a while, but we are finally getting into the map pick. We're going to see Taiko make their in-match debut for Team Brazil alongside Petit for South Korea. Yeah, here we go. It's gonna be Nawashi, the fascinating cat's eye. If you know Nawashi's style, this map should be absolutely no stranger to you. And instantly, we get a taste of what's to come with this map. A lot of weird flowing, a lot of, again, XL D-cell patterns. I swear to God, this pool loves their XL D-cells. But yeah, just the entire lobby slowly getting accustomed to the rhythmic density of this map at this juncture.
That's an early break there from Armia Kokoro there, and also with the accuracy advantage on Brazil's side, they're going to be taking the early lead there, but it seems to have slightly fallen now. Izzy and Taiko both dropping their accuracies, and they still have that combo lead as we move into this first KI here.
Yep, I mean this KI isn't too much more difficult from the rest of the map, just with the exception of some doubles getting through into the mix, and Taiko is going to be the first one to find the miss in the KI. Hopefully that should be enough to swing the scoreline in favor of South Korea, but it seems as though the accuracy from Korean Maliko is keeping them in the game. But Allegrissimo looking to cancel that out very, very nicely. But Allegrissimo doesn't get fouled the combo, and with that, the entire bottom row from South Korea in an instant gets snapped away. Meanwhile, Brazil is still holding strong with their bottom row. Izzy and Korean Maliko so incredibly scary. Korean Maliko might find a miss, but Izzy is still holding strong, looking to do as much damage as he can within this short period of time, because consistency is so hard to find on a map like this.
Yeah, we're halfway through the map here, and Izzy is still holding that full combo. Armia Kokoro has built up that recovery combo, of course, but we're gonna need to find a miss from Izzy probably on the side of Brazil if South Korea wants to take. But it's Armia Kokoro on the recovery to find that break.
I mean, Izzy is just completely demolishing this pick at this juncture. It's a 60k, 70k scoreline in favor of Brazil, and Izzy does find a miss, but where is the response from South Korea? In fact, the recovery lies in the hands of Korean Maliko on the side of Brazil. And so what can you even do going to this last quarter of the map? There is no attack whatsoever. You're really just banking on more misses to come up from Taiko for your team to have any sort of guarantee going into this last quarter. And for what it's worth, that gamble might just pay off 60k. But it is slowly but surely moving in favor of South Korea. If they can find their footing in this last section, hold up, the blade might be getting rather dangerous, rather sharp right now, as a 3-way 300 combo from South Korea are a looming threat against Korean Maliko's 600. Izzy trying their best to bolster that scoreline, but with a 30k score difference separating these two players going to the last section of the map, hold up. It might be close. Korean Maliko cannot afford to go down whatsoever. And going to the last sections of the map, Korean Maliko finds the miss, but I don't think it's gonna be just enough. Oh my goodness, Brazil throwing out everything at the very end. Holy.
And they're going to be taking that break point on the Hard Rock 3, bringing up to 2-1. I mean, scary pick there from South Korea, and just shows how evenly matched these two teams are on that control, right? So I don't think South Korea will probably want to be picking into that control so soon.
I don't know, man. I think it's more so a Honestly, I don't quite think so, willwam. I think Brazil has given up a lot of information from this Hard Rock 3 because yes, Izzy, Korea, Malico, GOAT on Hard Rock. We expected that, but Taiko, Brazil has a massive third player issue when it comes to this Hard Rock 3, and if it translates to the rest of the Hard Rock pool, which I think is pretty damn control heavy, South Korea have a pretty good segue into these two other picks. But if anything, I think this loss on Hard Rock 3 from side of South Korea is more so telling of their lack of consistency on picks that would usually seem rather South Korea coded, right? Because in any universe, we were all expecting South Korea to win that pick, but it just seemed as though they found a miss here, they found a miss there, they just found too many misses throughout the course of the map for them to get a solid team score overall. And I think that's the key here.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you mentioned that third player syndrome that Brazil kind of suffered from, and yeah, I totally agree with you there. It's going to be about those two carry players on the side of Brazil, and just hopefully South Korea dropping some of that consistency so that Brazil can take points. But as it stands right now, Brazil is going to try and convert this break point here with their own pick. And what do you think they go for here? I'm honestly a little bit not too familiar with Brazil's game here, I can't lie.
I was gonna actually say Brazil's turf is definitely going to be the no mods, right? I think picking any mods into South Korea would be rather dicey. I mean, even though they won that Hard Rock 3, you could honestly boil that down to a bit of a fluke, right? Especially given that third place syndrome. No way in hell if they replayed that match that Brazil was gonna win that again. It's not a consistent pick whatsoever. And so, this no mod 1 pick makes a lot of sense to me. However, I do think this no mod 1 is more heavy on the tapping side. In fact, I think it's the tapping check of the no mod pool, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. I mean, this map is 240 BPM. It features, honestly, it's not too... It features a lot of tapping, of course, but it's very concentrated in one or two sections of the map, while the rest of the map is really just standard speedy aim type thing. So I'm interested to see how this plays out for Brazil, right? Because this is a map where I think if South Korea is able to get one or two pop-offs, it's going to kind of negate that third player. I think it will manage to beat a team score from Brazil given their third player syndrome, but I don't know, maybe on speed or something like that, Brazil is a lot more favored.
I mean, that's initially what I thought when I was checking out these two teams. But if you look at their qualifiers performance, of the top 8 teams, South Korea and Brazil are very, very noticeably dark on both of the DPs. They were 19th and 20th. South Korea was 19th and 20th on DP1 and 2, whereas Brazil was number 20 and 17th on the DP1 and DP2. So both teams really just hate the double time. Both teams really just hate it. But maybe, again, no mod is a different place here. I think we got that signal for going from the 3 mod 4 into the no mod 3, so you can definitely see this no mod 1 being sort of the same thing. And for what it's worth, this no mod 1 isn't necessarily super intense on the speed, because it does feature a lot of that mech tech element. There are a lot of tech elements here, so it's not quite, just a shredded map at 240 BPM. It's a tech map at 240.
Yeah, but we will just have to get right into it. The players are in the lobby, and I mean, this map is going to take quite a while to build up, right? All the off KIs here are just a lot of this 240 BPM, just generic aim mechanics, which shouldn't be very hard for any of these players, but the real meat of this map lies in those KIs where it is almost like a shred map in those KIs. The long bursts just don't stop, and it's where we're going to be seeing most of those misses on a map like this.
It sort of reminds you of the sliders that we saw in Peanut Butter Jelly Time last school, you know? Just like a bunch of tapping, but also a lot of start stops. It's not necessarily like a raw test of your speed, but it forces you to be very comfortable in the fin control element. But here we go. First KI coming into the map, and my keyboard and Monty are going to be the first ones to go down, added up by Hirata as well. Korean Maliko left on his lonesome, but with Tripori finding the miss, it's going to be a 1v1 between Amamiya Koko and Korean Maliko at this juncture. We're moving into the second quarter of the map. The second half of this KI and the bursts are going to start getting longer. A very slight score lead going to go in favor of South Korea, but with Brazil slowly but surely mounting up that recovery, it might spell a different story, but Hirata is going to find a miss, and that's not going to do them any favors as we move past that 1/3 mark and slowly but surely out of that first speed section and into a more free-flow aim section. My keyboard and Shibori looking scarier than ever with the recoveries.
South Korea have that combo advantage right now, but I really think this is going to be about those two FCs right now. Korean Maliko for the side of Brazil and Amamiya Kokoro for the side of South Korea, because, you know, you get quite a lot of free combos in between these kind of KIs, right? So I think it's just going to be a matter of who manages to hold for longer.
Yeah, that's right, slowly but surely moving past that halfway mark of the map. The map is slowly building up into its next KI. The burst comes in. Korean Maliko, a lot of aggros, but doesn't find the miss. And at this juncture, you know, Korean Maliko and Amamiya Kokoro, there are no room for error for these two players, but Amamiya Kokoro lets the nerves succumb to him. And with that, Korean Maliko is now front-running the Brazilian scoreline with Monte right behind them, alongside Hirata, who has finally found a grip on their combo. My keyboard and Shibori getting completely surrounded by them, but the entirety of the bottom row gets hit by an earthquake, leaving only Monty to survive with the 800 combo. Scoreline shifts towards that left side as he moves past into the second half of the map, and what a phenomenal performance from Monte. So much room.
Monte is the only one to hold any sort of combo moving into this last third of the map, and even though the scoreline is quite thin, South Korea just don't have any combo to try and make the score lead back. We're gonna have to see Monte drop and multiple breaks from the side of Brazil here if they want to take it back. There's still plenty of map here, and there's one PI here, but after this, there's really not much left in the map. It's just a matter of whether Monte can find that break.
Yeah, right. I mean, South Korea is hot on their tail with the three recoveries from their entire roster, right? And we've seen this so many times, right? The average team score from South Korea is their strength. But Shibori is going to find a miss as we move into the breakdown of the song. Monte is still strong as ever, standing tall as ever. Before South Korea can even begin to think about taking the scoreline back, they need that FC they need that huge combo from Monty to go down, and as that scoreline continues to go towards the left side, I mean, it's going to 150k, and as the map builds down, I don't think there's anything South Korea can do but watch as Brazil takes yet another point on the board to convert that breakpoint into a lead.
That's just exactly what we predicted would happen, right? It's just about those large combos holding through those tricky KIs, and South Korea just unable to find the consistency, unable to hold through those sections. Their team score, you know, very consistent across all three players here, but with Brazil, it's just about those pop-offs, and Monty with an incredible 740k score, taking them up to 3-1. And now it's South Korea to try and respond.
Yeah, I love how much of a statement pick this was from Brazil, right? Because comparing this pick to what we saw last week from the Nomad 2 from last week, which is also sort of a speedy map, Brazil was the second lowest team in overall team score, just 2 placements below South Korea. But this time, you know, with the Nomad 2, they were confident. They decided to just gung-ho and shoot their shot. And hey, it worked out. It worked out incredibly well for Brazil here. But it's going to be another pick for South Korea, and frankly speaking, willwam, I think the control is just too good to pass off for South Korea, right? I think one of the moderate control picks, I'm definitely eyeing that hidden 2 very, very strongly.
Sure, yeah, and also maybe that hard rock too features that sort of control or like burning star element that
just tell me you want to see more of them. Just tell me you want to see the original chapter. Okay, thank you, Amamiya Kokoro.
There it is.
Thank you. That's all I'm talking about. Tell us a little bit about this map, willwam. You're talking about the burning star.
I mean, this Hardrock 2 original, by Zenjez, custom map by Australia. This map gonna be quite light on the precision element, just CS 5.9, but this map is incredibly brutal, right? If you know Burning Star, this map is basically Burning Star version 2 or 3 or whatever iteration we're on now.
100, bro. I call it Gengao's fault, bro. It's Gengao's Foon's fault. Like, I ain't even
plenty of those, I don't even know how to describe it in words, right? It's just a sort of linear slider into burst that just requires such incredible cursor control, especially on this CS 5.9 that I think South Korea is kind of known for, right?
Yeah, and this is a single tapper's nightmare, right? Because there's so much blending that if you don't pull off, it's gonna be it's either gonna be very stamina intensive or very difficult to be consistent on the tapping as well. And you need to get your tapping down before you can even begin to start thinking about the aim. So yeah, this is just right up South Korea's alley. I think if there was ever a map where Brazil's third player syndrome would be the most pronounced in this Hardrock pool, it would have to be this Hardrock 2. Because you need the comfort here. You need the comfort on the control.
So yeah, I do think this is one of those maps where if you have that third player syndrome, your score is just going to be incredibly low compared to a roster that has two players that can play the map fairly well, which I think is probably what we're going to see from South Korea, right? They're kind of known for this, and they have liked the control skill set throughout this match. So I think on paper this should be quite South Korea favorite for sure.
You cannot say Burning Star without thinking about South Korea, right? Try not to do South Korea on control challenge, man. Okay, and it looks like South Korea are going to be fielding in their 3 A-game players, Allegrissimo, Chipori, and Amamiya Kokoro for their roster. And meanwhile, Brazil going to be bringing Hirata, bringing back Shikyu into the lobby, alongside Korean Maliko to round off this squad. With that, it's going to be Zenjez. Once again, huge shout out to Zenjez for the lovely original, the lovely OS original, alongside Shurella for mapping this original as well. And with that, let's jump straight into Relentless Anxiety. This map, in its name, it tells you it's relentless, and it definitely delivers in terms of the map. It does not give you any time for break, as Amamiya Kokoro and Chipori open up with first misses.
See exactly what this map is about, right? There's linear patterns that just require so much cursor control, and surprisingly it's Brazil to take the early combo lead here. Shikyu's and Korean Maliko just up against the 1FC from Allegrissimo there, and Chipori finding another break there, but I think South Korea is just barely taking the score lead off an accuracy advantage. They're all up there at 98s, 99s there.
That's right, I mean, far cry in comparison to Hirata and Shikyu really struggling at the 96 and 97. But with that miss from Amamiya Kokoro, you might see an act versus combo game here as Allegrissimo and Korean Maliko move into the more, the more flowing, intensive, linear section of the map. But Korean Maliko gets tripped off, and Allegrissimo outpaces them as he now generates a massive combo advantage for South Korea. Chipori right behind them to further multiply that score lead.
Yeah, Allegrissimo is just running scot-free here, uncontested full combo, and there just really isn't anything on the side of Brazil to respond, right? We have the full combo from Allegrissimo and the recovery combo from Chipori here as we get into this last of the map. I don't know if there's much time for Brazil to make a comeback here.
Yeah, and the further and further we move into the last quarter of the map, the more it seems like it's just the Allegrissimo show as Chipori finds the miss. Allegrissimo stands tall with the 800 combo. Hirata finds the miss as well. Largest recovery from Brazil goes down. And as more and more misses clear the lobby, Shikyu and Amamiya Kokoro, the next ones to go down. Allegrissimo, 99.2% act into the flow wave, last section of the map. How is he doing this? Are we real? Are we real? Allegrissimo finally goes down, but that is just how incredible this score is. 99% act, no less as well to end off this pick.
I mean, that's just like the entire script flipped on its head, right? It's South Korea pulling up with these pop-off scores, meanwhile Brazil, the ones that with the consistent team score, and that is just going to give South Korea that point that they need, bringing us up to 3-2. They are still one break point behind, and it's a matter of Brazil to pick next. I mean,
I see someone in. I'm sorry. Well, I see someone in chat saying give him a bracket reset the FCs, and I just thought that's really funny. I thought that's really funny.
That's good. That's good.
Oh man. Oh man. But yeah, the pick is gonna go back into the hands of Brazil yet again, and I think, come on, just finish up the no mods. I think they've been doing so good with the no mod 1 and 2. It's just looks so consistent for them. I don't think there's any reason for them to look to play into the mods, especially when South Korea seem very, very strong when they are in their element. I could also see a double time working out for them, honestly, but double time is just so iffy for these two rosters.
I mean, the thing is, like, both of these no mod maps that are left are control maps, right? You have the no mod 3
that's true.
Lowy, reading, control, cursor control again, and no mod 4 again is your standard tech. Also a lot of cursor control in that as well. So I feel like DT may end up being a better option for Brazil, right? Even though the qualifier scores may suggest that they don't really like the DT pool at all, I think, you know, given how that no mod 1 went especially, I think DT is going to be a better option than trying to fight control against a team like South Korea.
Yeah, you're really making me think here, willwam. What are your thoughts on, you know, perhaps going for a standard accessibility pick, such as, you know, a hidden 1? You know, just a very, very long consistency pick. Like either hidden 1 or DT1. What are your thoughts on that?
Now, for hidden 1, I think the thing about consistency is that a roster like South Korea kind of thrives off maps where, you know, they can get 3 players for it and to get high team scores on it. But the thing with like hidden 1, I guess, specifically, is that it is a consistency long map, and South Korea seems to have been struggling quite a bit with those. Yeah, they have been struggling with getting that consistency, so I'm really not sure, but Brazil is going back into that speed, going with the free mod 2. Not only the DTs, but going for free mod. Maybe a little shocking actually, given that South Korea can take mods here, but it is going to be your speed map of the pool, this free mod 2. 258 BPM, and yeah, just your speed map of the pool, really, isn't it?
Okay, well, then again, you know... Oh, wait, hold on, let me think. Okay, I think this pick makes a lot of sense in context, right? You see Brazil picking into free mod, it's kind of red question marks, but then you look at the fact that they won out on that no mod 1, which was about 240 BPM, and you look at the free mod 2 and it makes a lot of sense, right? This is not so much so as Brazil looking to go for an aggressive, even though I kind of think that it is, but it's more so just playing into South Korea's very, very well-known speed weakness. I think this is where South Korea's surface syndrome starts to kick in, right? I think we've seen South Korea really struggle on not just the street threat maps, but the DTs as well. And if South Korea can't field a roster for the DTs, how much worse can it get when you throw in mods on top of it, when BPM is cranked up to all the way up to that 258 BPM margin, second highest in this pool if I'm not mistaken as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. I feel like on paper Brazil should still be favored on a very tapping heavy map like this, even though the mods are being put on. If anything, I just think it might make Brazil slightly less consistent. I think, you know, South Korea shouldn't really have much change for that, but I think it's mostly something Brazil isn't planning to score off the mods, but you know. Again, it's just gonna be your tapping shred map. Brazil won that no mod 1 pretty safely, I think. So I think we're hopefully seeing Brazil able to convert at this point as well.
Yeah, and like I like to echo your point one last time about how Brazil's only gonna lose a bit of score when it comes to throwing in the mods. I think at the end of the day, you can't erase like a fundamental skill set, right? You can sort of look past the hiddens and the hard rocks because every player would have dealt with that at some point in their career. But speed is one of those things that it's either you can or you can't. It's a very, very clear split. And as you get into semifinals, I like to reiterate, this is where the skill cap definitely starts to clock higher and higher. And yeah, we are not able to see players like Alegrissimo in for a map like this, which should be telling that, you know, the speed cap is starting to get to these players. But that, without further ado, we're going to see a very, very different Fremont roster from both of these rosters, comparing that to the Fremont 4. In fact, a complete roster swap from Brazil, going from this Fremont 2 from the Fremont 4. Alongside South Korea, going to be bringing my keyboard as the only roster change from the other Fremont map. So here we go. Early sections of the map, both teams just getting accustomed to the BPM, but once you get into KI, that's where the action is going to be found.
Yeah, I mean, all players looking incredibly solid right now. It's really just South Korea taking that slightly early accuracy lead here, but, you know, as these long bursts here, everyone just looks so comfortable, no misses at all. Just FCs across the board here. We're just going to have to wait and see if any of these bursts can catch these players out.
Yep, there's going to be a showdown right now as we slowly and very patiently wait for that first miss. And there we go, first blood being drawn from Taiko. And with that, the scoreline is going to brace in favor of the right side. South Korea still holds 3 FCs to Brazil's 2. With pretty solid accuracies to boot, but my keyboard is going to be the next one to go down. So now the FCs go down 2-2. Scoreboard opens up, and for what it's worth, Taiko's accuracy is a lot higher than my keyboard. So at least in that aspect, I think Taiko is going to have a bit of an easier time recovering that lost combo. But then again, we are still looking at stagnation from the scoreboard, and it's still anyone's game as we move past the halfway mark.
Yeah, we're only 1/3 of the map in, and, you know, in this later half of the map is really where that stamina element, I think, is really going to hit these players, right? We're only seeing 2 misses across the board here, but this map is just so long, and that stamina element can really bite these players in the back. But as it stands right now, it's still 2 FCs to 2 as we move in this next PI here.
Yeah, that's right. More and more bursts. The bursts are getting longer and longer in this KI. And as it stands right now, South Korea are just holding a very, very minuscule score advantage just by nature of that earlier miss coming in from Taiko. But, I mean, they are not out of the game just yet. But as I say that, Brazil lose both. Hirata, oh no, that's going to be a bunker for Hirata. Another chance at life for Taiko. That one is a real one. And with that, South Korea now have my keyboard as their win condition. They are now going to continue to push the scoreline further and further towards the right side, but a bunch of accuracy drops hit the screen of Amamiya Kokoro, and with that, the scoreline is going to be kept in check. If a miss is to be found in this last quarter of the map, Brazil can just snatch it away.
Yeah, the scoreline is still quite tight right now, and Brazil
it's real
for Hirata. Finds that, I think that's a real one, finds that drop, and South Korea can now just run away with it. They have 2 FCs still on the board, and my keyboard on that incredibly solid 1k recovery combo here. I don't think, unless we see a collapse in South Korea, Amamiya Kokoro does find that break, but I don't know if there's enough time for Brazil to make the comeback here.
Yeah, especially if my keyboard standing strong with that no mod anchor performance. 1.3k combo to support Chipori's FC, and that miss from Monte gonna be the final nail in the coffin on this pick. South Korea are looking to steal this breakpoint right back, and willwam, we were wrong. Perhaps the lack of consistency from Brazil is just enough for South Korea to tip the scales on the mechanics, on the tapping.
It does. It's just that pop-off score from Chipori. I mean, incredible. Hard Rock FC there for South Korea. 994k there. Solid carry performance there, and is going to allow South Korea to take that breakpoint right back, tying us up at 3-3. And yeah, I thought, you know, on paper this would be such a Brazil favorite pick, but South Korea now with the pop-off score able to snatch it back from their hands.
And I think with that, Willem, it's a good time to say that we have a game on our hands. Mid-game, we're looking at a 3-3 scoreline. This is where it gets intense, and this is where the picks start to slowly but surely thin out. But I mean, I think South Korea still have a pretty solid game plan moving forward, right? They still have a lot of their mods in their hands. I think the Hidden 2 makes a lot of sense if they want to jump into more of those, you know, very, very box standard control picks. But Brazil, Brazil, they have to start dabbling their fingers into the double time if they want to get some late game security during this matchup.
I honestly think South Korea would pick a no-mod control pick over the Hidden 2, purely because Hidden 2 is very short and very polarizing, right? It's very second half heavy map, and it's so short that I feel like South Korea would want to go for a pick like no-mod 3, no-mod 4, where it's more consistency based. I'm especially looking at no-mod 4, right? It's a long cursor control slider heavy map that I think is right in South Korea's ballpark. And even though, you know, Brazil certainly likes those no mods, you know, I think just basing off control alone, I think no mod 4 is a pick I'm really expecting from South Korea here.
I mean, you say that. I don't know. I feel like I've seen a lot of South Korean matches, and I've seen no mod 4s, these slider tech no mod 4s not go their way, at least from a consistency standpoint. So I would definitely eyeing the no mod 3 a little bit more, and with that, we are going to see them go for the no mod 3. South Korea, this is the no mod 3 country. If there was ever a slot to represent South Korea, it'd either be hard mod 3 or it'd be no mod 3. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's no mod 3, right? All about that, just typical alt cursor control is quite dense, right? It sits down at AR 9.3, and there's plenty of patterns in this that can really catch you out, right? There's a lot of overlaps and weird, like, I don't even know how to describe them, like squares, but they don't go in a square, if you know what I mean. Just those sorts of patterns that just really test your ability to not only read patterns, but the cursor control required, as I've been saying throughout this match. Just it's right in South Korea's ballpark, right? Pretty.
Yeah, this is like this pick is labeled as South Korea's name on it. Although this is a pretty short map, talking in a little under 2 minutes, so definitely one of those maps where we could see a current performance be the deciding factor between both these teams. Especially because I don't think Brazil, all things considered, are that weak on the control, especially seeing what both Izzy and Korean Malako did on the Hard Rock 3. And by removing that added difficulty of the mods and just playing on an even playing field on no mod, I do think by nature that is definitely going to benefit Brazil. As I believe we're probably going to see Shakiri, Korean Malako, and Izzy being fielded for a pick like this.
And the thing is, though, you say that obviously like that favors Brazil, but I think you also have to consider that South Korea is going to be just on paper very strong on a map like this, and comparing it to the Hard Rock 3, they're only going to get even stronger when you let them play on no mods, right? I don't think no, even though they like the mods better, it's more like the mods are more abusable against other countries, especially like Brazil. So I think, you know, South Korea is still going to be incredibly solid on this map. I don't think basing, like comparing it to the Hard Rock 3 alone is enough to say that Brazil is favored or anything on this map.
Oh yeah, no, 100%, yeah. It's another question of like how much does removing the mods or how much does adding the mods actually affect Brazil? Similar to what we saw from the free mod 2 before, right? Apparently the added inconsistency that the mods threw at Brazil was enough to have that switch be flicked. So another question is, by removing the mods from Brazil, do you even out the playing field enough that they can contest against a country as strong as South Korea on the control? We'll have to wait and see. It's a very, very short map, so not a lot of downtime, not a lot of time for these players to get ready, and we're straight into the action.
Yeah, you just see what this map is all about, right? That cursor control, these flowy patterns, those squares that don't go in a square patterns.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
And South Korea is going to be just barely seeing their early score. Even though Sherbet found the miss there, they are winning just based off that accuracy. They're all the way up there at 98%. But I mean, we're moving to the next side of the map, and there's still plenty of time for South Korea to find that break. I mean, Brazil have just taken the score lead back since they have those 3 FCs still intact.
That's right, willwam, and as you mentioned before, this is a very second half heavy pick, so don't let the high combos fool you. When we get into that last KI, things are gonna get very interesting, but a question mark from Sherbert is gonna follow a uncharacteristic miss from them. Not quite what you want to see right before the first action-intensive KI of the map. But with that, I mean, we are moving straight into the final KI of the map. South Korea is extremely consistent on picks like this. So going to this last quarter of the map, it's going to be up to whether Brazil can hold on to their 3-way FC. But as it stands right now, they need to see a miss before South Korea can begin getting a point. And there we go. First miss gonna go down from Korean Maliko. We're moving into facing more of this real flow section of the map, and with that, I mean, the Mamiya Coco and Allegrismo are pushing up. They're hot on Brazil's tail, but going to the last sections of the map, it's not gonna be enough, as a 60k scoring in favor of Brazil is going to be just about enough to get them another breakpoint. Oh my goodness, I was biting my lip. I was holding my breath.
Looking
oh my goodness,
incredibly dicey there for Brazil. South Korea were just about to take that back, I think, but I think maybe that break at the end for Sherbet just giving Brazil that break point and the win there. I mean, incredible team score from Brazil here. 2 FCs and a very solid score from a Korean Maliko here. And South Korea, I mean, incredible accuracies on those 2 FCs there, but unfortunately, Sherbet just finding those breaks in the middle and giving Brazil the point there. I mean, this is looking pretty good for Brazil, right? But I suppose they still have to play it very safe with what is left in the pool right now.
Yeah, as I said before, willwam, given how RNG this map is, sometimes that's just what you need. You know, sometimes just an unlucky spell hits the likes of South Korea, and that's how you lose the point. And I think it was a perfect example this time. Such is the perfect example this time, as Sherbert was the one to get the short end of the stick. Honestly, very unfortunate if you're South Korea. I will be punching myself for that. So I do not blame themselves. They're not feeling too hot after that loss on Random Mod 3. But it is going to go back into the hands of Brazil. And going back to what we are talking about, I think this is time for Brazil to break into the DT pool. It's been completely untouched, completely uninteracted with during this match. The only mod pool that's uninteracted with. So I think it is time to go into one of the DTs. What are you thinking? I'm thinking personally either DT1 or DT2.
Honestly, it's kind of hard to say, right? I think we can rule out DT4 pretty clearly.
Yeah.
And then I think DT1 is, I think, always an option. DT2 and DT3, the free mod 2 kind of like makes me unsure, right? Like, DT2 is, you know, your standard satellite DT, whereas DT3 is, you know, your high BPM finger control-y sort of map. Honestly, I think, well, Brazil has just picked the DT1 for us there, so I guess I can think about it for a little longer. But yeah, we're going to be getting to this DT1 right now. AR 10.5 is the name of the game here. And it's just going to be what we've kind of been seeing throughout all the DT1s this tournament, right? Your standard mechanics with a bunch of tapping in there as well to spice things up, right?
Yeah. In a world full of, you know, non-slot pooling, nick pooling, sometimes, you know, having a DT1 that you can always expect to be the same thing. It's sort of that breath of fresh air, that breath of constancy that we need. And yeah, at the end of the day, right, well, nothing much to unpack from this DT1. There's a lot of closely packed jump, clocking in at a very high 270 BPM. Maybe some bursts would trip these players up, but I really don't think that we're expecting to see any of that happen, considering how comfortable most of the players were going into that free mod 2. Of course, this is about 10 BPM higher, so that might spell a different story, but it's not like it's a DT3, if I'm not mistaken, where it's like really intense on the tapping. It's just some perfect stacks, perfect triples, perfect 5-note bursts, you know. So I don't think speed is going to be a big exclamation mark for these teams. Really, it's just going to be a matter of consistency on a high BPM.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also one thing to talk about here is how bad will the third player syndrome hit both of these teams, right? I think that's kind of something that like both of these teams do struggle with that third player syndrome quite a bit on the DT pool in general. So I think it's just a matter of like who can pull out with those carries really on a map like this.
And I find it interesting that you do mention this third player syndrome. Given how South Korea's matchup yesterday, or no, it's not yesterday, last week against Indonesia was a 9-map series compared to Brazil's 6-map series, we have a lot of more information to go off from last week's statistics when it comes to South Korea. And I don't want to be the bringer of bad news, but South Korea really has a very bad third player syndrome. It was a Tripori S rank 1.1 mil, a Mamiya Coco 700k, and then my keyboard way down at the bottom for 300k. So definitely hoping that my keyboard can really pull the South Korean score up on this double time one this time round. But yeah, we don't know how Brazil will interact at the end of the day, you know. Could definitely see the exact same story being told on side Brazil, where one of their players struggled to hell on the DT1. But 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock, double time, all about holding that consistency. You cannot afford to find a miss because score lines can spiral out of control very, very quickly on double time one.
Absolutely, yeah. I think this is the type of map where, you know, people who can play it are going to score incredibly high, as we've seen. And if you just find that miss, it's just going to be so devastating. At the end of this first PI here, everyone's still holding that FC. Neither team letting up, but Tori is the first one to find the break for South Korea. 3 FCs for Brazil, still holding strong, and they're just gonna run away with it, but it's treated right back by Korean Malico as we get into this off PI here.
Yeah, Korean Malico barely unable to survive to the end, not able to claim that free combo. And at this stance right now, my keyboard, a much better showing from last week's DT1. Very, very solid FC to put on the board right now. But the same cannot be said for Hirata as he finds a miss. Never mind, my keyboard finds a miss as well. And now it's going to be the top row versus the top row. AZ versus Amamiya Coco, the lone FC for both of their rosters. Not having the highest accuracies, in fact, the lowest accuracies on their roster. But oh, this is a combo game, so you know it's all about the combo. And Amamiya Coco just does not have it as Izzy outlasts the top row of South Korea, and with that, the combo lead is gonna very comfortably go in favor of Brazil. And look at that, willwam, the scoreline is racing towards the left side.
Absolutely, a full reset now for South Korea. All 3 players finding that miss. Meanwhile, Brazil's 3 players, Izzy on the FC and Korean Malico and Karata, both on those recovery combos. There is just no time for South Korea to make any sort of comeback here. Izzy may find that break at the very end there, but they have done more than enough to secure this point for their team.
Yeah, extremely heavy punch to South Korea on this double time one. And I mean, DT1 is always one of those maps where we just don't expect South Korea to do particularly well, so I don't think they should hold it against themselves. Really, just a GG go next angle. But going to the last sections of the map, incredible team score, incredible average from the entire roster of Brazil. Korean Malico looking to go all the way to the end with an 800 combo. They're looking at 2 700Ks and a 500, almost 600K to boot from Brazil. So very, very solid score from the entire roster.
Yes, South Korea are still 1 breakpoint behind. They need to make sure they tread quite carefully here, right? You've been saying that they do have quite a lot of free room to play around with this pool, but they just haven't been able to secure that breakpoint they need to get themselves firmly back into this match. I mean, they still have quite a lot to go for there, right? They still have the hidden 1, the hidden 2, and the hard rock 1 potentially, and the no mod 4 as well if they want to go into that no mod control. So they do have the picks to certainly close this match out, but it's just a matter of will they survive long enough against Brazil's picks to get to that point.
Yeah, we're currently at the juncture where I believe both countries have 2 more picks left. So I think it's very important for us to start talking about what their endgame game plan is. And I think South Korea have 3 options that they want to go for. I wouldn't go for the hard rock 1 personally. I think the no mod 4 and hidden 2 are probably better bets. But if they had to, you know, change one of their picks, it'd probably be between the hard rock 1 and the mod 4. Meanwhile, on the side of Brazil, I think it's either DT2 or DT3. I don't think there's any way to splice it, but okay. Okay.
Oh, wow.
South Korea statement pick here. Hold up. We're going for the double time tech. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, maybe this isn't that shocking, all things considered, right? Like,
Yeah,
Brazil
okay.
isn't- I don't know. I mean, I was definitely expecting something more conventional, like the No More 4 Hidden 2, but I don't think this is necessarily a bad pick by any means from South Korea,
True,
right?
true.
Like Brazil is certainly not the strongest on DT at all, especially compared to a team like South Korea. And this DT4, you know this map, right?
Fracture Hawkins.
Wider. My beloved.
6-digit map. It's a 6-digit map for
Just that wider tech that should favor South Korea, right? So I think this is by no means.
Yeah, I think South Korea going into this pick is really just putting themselves out there as the end-all be-all control team. You know, it doesn't matter what mod, it doesn't matter what kind of battlefield, what kind of condition that they have to play the map under. As long as it is control, they will give you a run for your money. They will tip the scale. I think that's definitely the game plan going for this. It's a Fracture Hawkins map. Fracture Hawkins, known as, a very, very famous new gen tech mapper. Known for his big sliders. Big sliders. That's all you need to know about this guy. So yeah, definitely out of South Korea's alley. And I do think if they win out on this point, the No More 4s, they can have a lot more confidence going into the No More 4, which does give them that late game stability that they pretty desperately need, considering that they are a breakpoint down against Brazil.
Yeah. I mean, we do see a timeout come out for the side of Brazil.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I don't know, maybe we continue that discussion about the end game plan here, right? Like, what are these teams looking at?
I think Brazil goes for the DT2 or DT3. I don't think they want to go control into South Korea unless they beat out South Korea on this DT4, which I don't know. Do you think that's like, well, give me like a percentage in your opinion as to how much Brazil is favored on this?
I honestly could not tell you because like, I just couldn't tell you. Like this map is just one of those maps, right? It's short, and neither of those teams have been very prominent on the DT.
Yeah, but it's all about big sliders at the end of the day, right? I think, it's so difficult. It's so difficult because you look at South Korea's performances on No More 4, and yeah, they're insane, right? You look at the qualifiers, #1 on No More 4, but then you look at Brazil as well, who was #3 on No More 4. Like everywhere you look, South Korea and Brazil are just so evenly matched. Last round, Brazil was #3 on No More 4, South Korea was #5 on No More. In fact, if you're going off the statistics, tech-wise, Brazil seems to be the country that's stronger on hard tech, but this is not hard tech. We haven't seen either of I don't think we've seen either of these rosters play into this specific genre of tech, right? Double time speed tech. I don't think we've seen either country really play into this very much so. I don't think they're a big fan of it. And so in that sense, it's a real gray area for both South Korea and Brazil going to this score. But
I mean,
at least, no, you go.
I mean, I would like to mention that Brazil did end up playing the DT2 in round of 16, which was
really?
A DT tech map, but I think it is kind of a different genre, right? And also,
the slider plan is big.
Not many teams played that map at all, right? So it's kind of hard to get a gauge of how well they perform compared to like the crowd on a map like on DT Tech, right? So it's just such a gray area, as you've been mentioning.
Yeah, and going just like magnifying that DT2 pick real quick. I don't even think the scores from that DT2 pick in round of 16 were all that phenomenal. I mean, no scores above 700k and true 400ks in the round of 16. That's not anything really stand out. I know that DT2 was pretty demon in round 16, yes, but still, at least from at least when making a case for a team being strong on a certain pick, you want them to be at least strong on the low SR version of it. But we're finally back into the action. This is a very, very short map. Once again, clocking in under 2 minutes. And we're instantly into the action. Welcome to Fractal Flux.
South Korea are going to be taking this early lead here from that early break of Taiko. There's really not a lot of combo in here, right? 2 breaks. Oh no, those are Banshee misses, sorry. But yeah, there really isn't a lot of combo in this map at all, so you really need to make sure you're avoiding breaks here. And there are some real breaks, and Izzy on the side of Brazil and a Mamiya Kokoro for this line here, and followed up by Alagrissimo. Now it's just Shipori and Korean Malako playing on the window, but Korean Malako finds that break.
Hold on, Shipori is being the difference maker, and that scoreline is racing in favor of the right side, similar fashion to the DT1. South Korea are gonna flip the script. This is time they are the ones that are getting magnified out of control. But what did Shipori miss on? Finding a miss on a slider tick, it seems. But hold on, wait, Alagrissimo, was that a bunch of misses? Oh my goodness, I'm getting cross-eyed from the amount of bunch of misses on my screen. Never mind. It was never looking doable for Brazil, considering how both Chipor and Alagrissimo were holding that FCN. Here you have your answer, and it looks like whenever you play a game of tech, whenever you play a game of football, you never doubt South Korea.
I mean, this is just an incredible score from Alagrissimo here. I mean, 700k on a map like this, the only one able to play this map that comfortably, and South Korea are just going to run away with it, putting themselves up to 5-4. Still 1 breakpoint behind, mind you, but securely winning this DC4 pick by 800k. Incredible stuff here.
Okay, so now the story for this late game is solely contingent as to whether South Korea can find one more. Right, they lost a breakpoint, or they've lost 2 breakpoints early on, and Brazil always seems to be 1 step ahead of South Korea. This is where they need to be able to outpace Brazil and bring it back to equalize, right? It's gonna be up to Brazil's pick. They're not quite at match point, so nothing is set in stone right now, right? Nothing is as decisive as it could be. So right now, South Korea need to be very, very careful with their game plan moving forward. I think if Brazil want their most consistent point, it has to be a double time, either DT2 or DT3. I know Brazil really, really hate going into the speed, but do you really want to pick anything else into South Korea? Do you really want to pick the hidden one or a hard rock one into South Korea? I don't know, man.
We just have to wait and see. I am quite worried for what Brazil is going to pick after this, right? Because, you know, as you mentioned, they are not at match point. They still need to win 2 more points. And South Korea just have quite a clear pathway to winning, right? They have the no mod 4, the hidden 2, and they could easily just throw out like the hidden 1 hard rock one potentially. So I am a little bit worried for Brazil here, but as you mentioned, I think it's probably going to be those DTs, right?
Yep, that's right. I think Brazil has 2 more picks, and South Korea only has 1 more. So South Korea has 2 shots to win back a breakpoint here. But I mean, if you flipped it the other way, Brazil has 2 points to just win it all. Yeah, as you said, I think South Korea have a much clearer line of sight going into the end game. Meanwhile, Brazil, I do think it gets a lot easier if they manage to win out one of the DTs, but confidence is definitely up in the air considering you just lost on the DT4. But yeah, we see the DT3 pick coming up from Brazil, and definitely a very, very expected pick. I believe this is the high BPM speed check.
Yeah, absolutely right. This is going to be your high BPM, like finger control-y speed check almost, sitting way up there at 272 BPM, featuring a lot of short bursts, not really any sort of shred, I do believe, mostly just about making sure you can control your fingers at that high BPM.
Yeah. The patterning of this map is rather simple. I don't think there's a lot of aim, but you know, a lot of these patterns are pretty closely packed to one another, so you know, you need that sort of cursor control to not let your cursor spasm out of control. I don't think it's necessarily very difficult to aim, but in that aspect, it might be a bit tricky for players, especially if they're feeling the nerves, especially if they're feeling the shake. But yeah, this is as good as a pick I think Brazil could have gone for, right? Just fully playing into South Korea's weakness on the speed. And, you know, despite the fact that South Korea won on that free mod 2, Amame and Coco in particular was really losing some speed towards the tail end of that free mod 2, which could potentially signal a weakness when it comes to the double time. So yeah.
Yeah. My one thought though, or my one worry rather, is that I feel like this map might be a little bit more accessible to South Korea, because it's obviously not as shred as the free mod 2, right? It is higher BPM, of course, but you know, the bursts are very short, and it's about that finger control, like cursor control you keep mentioning. So I do worry that South Korea may be able to find some ground on the map. Like in that free mod 2, you mentioned Mami and Fakura, but the other two players were performing just fine, right? Tripori got that incredible hard on FC. So you know, I don't think this is as secure, but I think it's probably the safest pick that Brazil could have gone for at this juncture.
Yeah, and the more you mention it, right, Warren, I also think that this is a map, this is a speed map that's definitely mashable. In saying this, if DT all sort of fall into this sort of ballpark where, you know, if you have like a Wu thing, if you can DKS, you can probably just like ring tap your way through the entire thing. Because it really isn't, as much as this is a finger control map, there is quite a lot of finger control. The finger control is not so much found in like your ability to perceive the rhythm. It's not so much found in your mastery of the BPM. It's more so found in your ability to alternate. Funny as I mentioned it, right? So we're going into the map, and it should give you a good gauge as to what's to come. And oh my goodness, okay, I think that's an abort from Hirata. Oh, is that not a... Okay, I think that is an abort from Hirata. Early sections of the map, a bunch of misses getting cleared from the entire screen. It's not gonna be a... Okay, that is... Okay. Hold up. Okay. A bunch of early misses from that DT3. Very, very jump scare. Oh, this is a horror game.
Mouse problems on incident.
Mouse problem. Okay, we should be back into the action. Hopefully no more issues. Hopefully all the hardware issues will get solved. Yeah, we should be back into the game. Good luck, have fun, start coming in chat. Once again, bringing in the speed rosters from both of these teams. I believe we saw these exact same players in the free mod 2, and they're going to be coming back in for this DT3. Highest BPM tapping map in the pool, once again, about 10 BPM higher than the likes of free mod 2. So we'll see if that additional 10 BPM is going to be enough to trip anyone and catch anyone off guard.
My keyboard was out of South Korea here to find that first early miss there, but you know, we're still at the very early stages of the map. You see what this map is all about, right? Those fast finger control patterns that require so much focus, right? Everyone looking so comfortable, no misses at all. My keyboard seems to have found that recovery, but we're getting to this first DI here.
Yep, some action gonna be desired as my keyboard is going to continue to find a miss, but Hirata is gonna be the first one to go down inside Brazil, and that scoreline is gonna stagnate as is a complete wipe from the entire lobby. Bro, you're saying this was accessible? You're saying this was accessible?
Yeah, full sweep across the board. Everyone is down there at 0 combo, and now Brazil just have that tiny score lead that they were able to build up to that first die. But we are only 1/3 of the way into this map as Hirata and Michael would both find breaks, but it is that entire bottom row to hopefully find that recovery combo as we get into the second TI very shortly. And there's still only 100k and still plenty of time in the tank for South Korea to bring this back.
Yeah, that's right. With that complete wipe, it was an opportunity for, you know, the scoreline to equalize. And as it stands out, as you move into the KR, however, Hirata is, I mean, it's just misses all across the board. Nobody, in fact, able to deal with the 270 finger control. I mean, my bad for speaking too soon. It seems as though it was enough to trip a bunch of these players. I thought this was one of the maps where we would see large scores from the entire lobby, but I have been very, very quickly proven wrong. But as we move into the last quarter of the map, Brazil just seems to have a pretty sizable scoreline. 200k might not look like that big of a margin when it comes to a double time, but when you're looking at, you know, absolute difficulty that these players are having trying to get any sort of consistent score on the board, that is very, very difficult to make up.
Yeah, the accuracy on the side of South Korea is not helping things at all, right? The accuracies on Brazil just look so much more solid. And with a 200k score lead into this very last section of the map, I think Brazil is going to be comfortably taking this DT3 pick and bring themselves up to match point 6-4. South Korea is just really getting pressed up against the wall here, and Brazil is just ever so close for victory.
Yep, that's right. Oh my goodness, what a decisive point for Brazil. And it definitely gives them a lot more security going in for the DT2 next time, right? I think this next DT2 pick is looking a lot better than them, and it does show that as long as you take Brazil off the mods, they definitely have the advantage. But now with that, South Korea is going to go to their last pick, and I think there are two picks that we're looking at, right, willwam? It's either the free mod 4 or the hidden 2.
Mod 4 and the hidden 2, yes. Both, you know, very techy, very curse control-y, right up South Korea's ballpark, and they have seemed to stabilize a little bit, even though they lost, what was it, out of 3, yes it was. They seem to have won basically every single control map after that, so, you know, I think these two picks are kind of a no-brainer here, and you know, with Brazil on match point, they just really need to pick what they're known for, what they're good at. So I don't think we'll be seeing stuff like the hard rock 1 pick.
Yeah, I would be insane. I would go insane if you saw anything but these two picks. But yeah, reorienting ourselves to Brazil, because I think that's a bit more interesting. Do you think Brazil goes for DT2? Like I was thinking a little bit about it, a little bit more, right? Is it just me? Or am I crazy to say that like DT2 is pretty similar to free mod 2 in terms of like how much it has speed? And for that reason, I think it's rather risky.
I think South Korea is going to be less capped on the DT2 compared to the DT3, because they seem to struggle a lot, right? They had like 2 players, I believe, at quite low accuracies. Meanwhile, like the free mod 2, where it's just raw shred speed, looked pretty good for them, right? Especially considering they won that break against Brazil. So I think DT2 will certainly be a lot better for South Korea, and I think that's why Brazil obviously went for the DT3 first, right? So I still think Brazil will pick into it, but you know, I think it might be a lot less decisive than that.
Hopes are definitely still in the air, I think is what we're saying for this DT2 pick.
Yeah, we're gonna be seeing the No Mod 4 as pretty expected, right? It was either No Mod 4 or Hidden 2, and I think this map kind of leans into the consistency element more, right? It's a pretty long map, features a lot of cursor control, a lot of sliders, and a lot of spit circle tech sort of patterns, which, you know, as we've been saying time and time again, just right up South Korea's ballpark. They should be pretty favor on this, and you know, they need to make sure they win this, right? Brazil is on match point after all.
Yeah, no, 100% right. This No Mod 4 makes a lot of sense coming in from South Korea. Before we get into it, huge shout out to Hoshizora Rin for the lovely custom map. This song itself is just crazy. I think Tribal Jersey is such a gangster name, and this song itself, it's indicative of DJ Raichu's gung ho style. I'm a very, very big fan of this map. And I think the overall skill set for this map is once again gonna be a lot of large sliders alongside, you know, your average control map. It's just tech swap, you know, it's what you expect from a tech map like this SR.
Yeah, I think the sliders, you know, compared to the DT4, it is more about the control of like going from circles into slider into circles, right? That sort of thing that we're pretty used to seeing in modern day tech maps. Whereas the DT4 is more about like just your slider in, right? It's those big sliders that practice often known for. So I think based on that, I think South Korea should be completely fine on this. Honestly, it is just completely what they're known for.
I think one danger to be had with a map like this is that it's very, very how do I say? This map is very dependent, or it's the structure of this song in general. It's very, KI and then slow, and then KI and then slow, and then KI and then slow. Like the way that alternates is very, very, split. And so for that reason, it's very KI heavy. So being able to hit past KIs will definitely generate a lot of free combos. So being able to, combo through 1 or 2 KIs might honestly be more significant, through the overall score than, just getting, a few KIs or being able to combo through an entire KI, because it doesn't matter unless you can close it out. And I think that is definitely where we could see some tables being turned.
Yeah, just a very KI heavy map. I wouldn't say, you have free sections in between, because I think they're still pretty hard, but definitely a lot tamer compared to the tricky stuff we'll be seeing in the KIs. But this map opens quite slowly. It's gonna be a while until we see those KIs, where it's just gonna be where everyone's gonna be breaking, I think.
Yep, that's right. Here we go. Tribal Jersey in for the ignition. With that, the first bout of control patterns start to hit the screen. The slider into circle tag patterns so incredibly intense into the cuts. I mean, the variation in the tech mapping is just insane. You have a good mix of slider tech, and you have an even better mix of circle tag. And as of right now, it seems as though it's a standstill from the entire lobby, as all three of the players from both sides hold strong. But with Petit finding that miss, hold up, the scoreline is going to tip in favor of Brazil. The accuracy from South Korea is going to hold it back just a little bit. Not gonna let it swing over just yet, but it is going to become more and more rough if all three combos of Brazil can remain intact going into the end of this KI. And as we near that mark, it does look like they are going to come out with the combo. They're gonna come out with the free combo.
I mean, don't speak too soon. There's still this very tricky section coming up right now, I believe, as against this next guy here. No free combo for the side of Brazil here, but they still have that combo advantage. 3 to 1. Oh wait, that was a banter, sorry. 3 SPs to Chu now. Petit on that recovery.
The shoot!
South Korea, but shoot is the one to find the break for Brazil. That's 2 SPs to 2, and with the recovery on Petit, that is combo advantage to South Korea now, as well as having that significant accuracy advantage.
Oh my goodness, accuracy crime solved. Story of South Korea's life, man. You don't beat South Korea when it comes to no mod 4. We built down into a relatively tamer section, and for what it's worth, that recovery from Petit is going to be more than enough to escort the scoreline further and further to the right side. But the last KI is going to come in. If we see a meltdown from South Korea, it's still definitely possible. Korean Maliku and Easy are just waiting for their golden opportunity to seize the day. Final KI of the map comes in, and Izzy and Amaria Koko are both going to go down. But Korean Maliku and Electricity are going to be the two that add to the total. And Petit, the tactical miss at the beginning is going to pay off, as the dust settles, he's the only combo left in the lobby.
Yeah, I mean, there's just nothing Brazil can do. Full reset into that final TI there, and it's just Petit for the side of South Korea to secure that 200k score lead they were able to build up before. I mean, this is just exactly what we expected, right? We knew that South Korea was going to absolutely demolish a map like this, and they have just put on an incredible performance here for us, securing this No Mod 4 with an incredible score lead, and they will live for another day.
willwam, I've played these games before. We are at 6-5. Oh no,
man.
We are at 6-5. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. It's gonna be down to the D2. It's gonna be down to the DQ. South Korea need to earn their way to this tiebreaker, and they need to fight through very, very rough waters. Okay.
I mean, yeah, there's just nothing else that Brazil really could go into, right? Like, Hidden 2 is obviously off limits. Hidden 1 and Hard Rock 1 are both in. I feel like Brazil should just go with the DT2, right? It plays into that tapping, which they have been going in throughout this match, and they have been winning points pretty successfully on. So, as we've been saying, I think it's just going to be that DT2.
Yeah, there's no other way to slice it, right? South Korea need to play on uncomfortable territory, and well, Curry, is this DT2? Would you say that this DT2 is like the most raw mechanics test in the DT pool? Because I think it's 5-0 bursts. I think it's the most raw mechanics that we're gonna see in the DT pool in general.
I mean, I think DT1 is more mechanics, but when you're talking speed mechanics, I think DT2 is pretty speed mechanic, right? It's a satellite map. There is known for testing that DT mechanics very well. There's long, lowish BPM, but incredibly long flowy bursts that all tournament players are seeing. And there it is, Monty, for the side of Brazil, picks that DT2, potentially the last pick of this match. Either Brazil picks it now, or South Korea clutches up and sends us to a tiebreaker.
I want to real quick reiterate just how dicey a pick like this seems, even though South Korea, even though South Korea is South Korea and they are known for having a speed or / double time weakness, this is still not an amazing pick for the likes of Brazil, right? I think going into this match, Brazil is really banking on the longer bursts of this map. I think the longest burst in this map clocked in at around 13 notes. So they're really banking on these 13-note bursts to cut off South Korea. But the thing is, this map, I would say, features more aim than tapping necessarily, right? The tapping is sort of thrown in as a single long burst in the middle of a jump section. So it's not necessarily like, say, a everything will freeze map where you're just completely littered, where it's just completely littered with bursts and you have to deal with. And so in that sense, I do think South Korea have more than a fighting chance. I think they can. I think this is as favored as it can get for South Korea DT2 matchup.
You say that, but like they lost pretty damn bad on the DT1. I mean, that obviously was much higher BPM. This is much lower. So I don't think the speed cap is going to be as much of an issue for sure. But I wouldn't jump to that conclusion so fast. I don't know if I see it. I can't lie.
I'm like all my hope in this map is being funneled into the fact that South Korea won on that free mod 2 and they were cruising. You said it yourself. Amara Kokoro was struggling towards the end, but Chipori and my keyboard, who were in for the lineup on that free mod 2 last time, were so comfortable. They were so consistent. And when the map is 20 BPM lower, I can't help but be a believer. I can't help but believe that Chipori and my keyboard might be enough to topple down Brazil. Of course, the speed roster of Brazil just looks incredibly scary. Monte in particular has been absolutely showing up on all of the mechanics maps this match. So it's going to be a difficult point to win for South Korea. But willwam, I wouldn't discount them just yet. And for the love of the game, we have to root for the underdog.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. But we are going to be getting to the DT2 now, a satellite map. I mean, what this map is all about already, right? It's about those lower BPM, longish
and CS5,
bursts.
by the way.
And CS5, yeah, I don't think you got a chance to talk about that, which, may trip some people up in the in department, but, this map is still a tapping map. You see those flowy bursts, and Izzy is the first one for the Brazil side to fall here. Everyone else still holding those FCs, and South Korea is going to be taking the ever so slight score lead, but Amiyama Kokoro does find that break to trade out. It is now 2-2. Never mind, as I speak, Monte finds another break for the side of Brazil.
We have the accuracy safety net that Brazil has generated off the backs of Monte and Hirata are keeping them in the game right now. But look at the bottom row of South Korea, Chipori and My Keyboard holding down the fort, going to the second half of the map. And Monte just can't seem to find a grip. Has the CS5 claimed him? Hirata, the only FC on the side of Team Brazil. Amami and Coco doing their best to hold back Izzy, but Hirata falters. What are we doing? South Korea? South Korea might just do it. Double 800 combos going into the second half of the map. They are cruising through Chipori. His accuracy might fall, but his combo does not as he moves comfortably into the last third of the map. A 300k scoreline in favor of South Korea, and as more misses clear the Brazilian roster, we see the score of GT1 being flipped on its head as now South Korea are the ones with the force multiplier magnifying punch being thrown at Brazil. Holy crap, My Keyboard might find a miss, but where is the recovery from Brazil, I ask you?
There's just nothing that Brazil can do there with a full reset across the board there. And Amami and Coco are still on that recovery combo and a 500k score into this last section of the map. There is just nothing that Brazil can do other than watch South Korea fight to the very end and take us all the way to the tiebreaker.
Oh man, believe us.
Oh, man.
Keep believing. Keep believing. They still got one more in them. Oh man. And here we go. It's tiebreaker. First tiebreaker of the week. And it's on a Camellia map. No, that's, oh my goodness. We have to talk about this tiebreaker. Well, we gotta talk about this tiebreaker. It's a mix of what both of these rosters are strong at, right? Brazil has been showing confidence in the mechanics. This is a mechanics-focused tech tiebreaker. So you're blending in elements of both teams into one 5 minute 32 second, 5 minutes long, 5 minute 32, I can't even talk, 5 minute 32 second long consistency. Wow. Oh man.
Yeah, it does obviously mix a lot of those elements that both teams are good at, but I just have to wonder, you know, even though Brazil is always going to be favored on the mechanics and South Korea is going to be favored on the tech, how well? Because South Korea obviously isn't a slouch when it comes to mechanics at all, right? So I'm just a bit worried that being good on mechanics is not going to be enough. But obviously Brazil is also no slouch on tech at all, right? They won that Hard Rock 3 and they've put up a pretty damn good fight on all the control maps so far, so it's just gonna be out who can hold for longer, right?
Yeah, the thing about a map like this, right? A RLC map, by the way, RLC, everybody goes crazy in chat. But the thing about a map like this is that it doesn't necessarily lean very heavily into either mechanics or control, right? This map is probably half as techy as the No Mod 4 or as the Hidden 2. It's nowhere near as techy as those maps, so South Korea aren't really privileged in that sense. And on the flip side, you know, the flowing requirement on this map, the mechanical requirement on this map is a far cry from what we've seen these two teams deal with during the series. And the flow aim is by no means anywhere near as intense as No Mod 2. So at the end of the day, willwam, I think this is honestly similar to the round of 16 Musume map. This is honestly the most accessible map in this pool, I dare say.
See, I think you might be right? Like, I think there's just no other map in this pool that like has these skill sets not tested to the extreme, right? A lot of these maps just test those skill sets, like just to the extreme. So this map is really just gonna be, I think, just about that consistency, right? 5 minutes and 32, as you expect on the tiebreaker. And that sort of makes me favor Brazil a bit more.
Really?
I think so. I don't know. I think South Korea has been struggling a little bit. However, we did just see on that DT2, Brazil struggled a lot on the consistency there, right? They were finding quite a few misses in the middle. But of course, like, this tiebreaker is a completely perpendicular sort of map here, so I don't know.
Okay,
we'll
okay.
have to see which roster.
But at the same time, South Korea cannot lose a second tiebreaker this UWC. Like, there is no way they can do it. Like, I don't think the roster can stomach losing another tiebreaker. So I think the hunger is definitely there, right? I feel a lot of anger coming in from this South Korea roster, having, you know, being bruised, battered this entire 3-digit World Cup. They are out for blood this time, and you know, we'll have to see how it goes. South Korea, 2-time champions of the 3-digit World Cup this year. A far cry from their former glory, you know. They lost a lot of teams this 3-digit World Cup, but they still have one more pick in them this matchup, and they gotta make it count. I think as far as an underdog story can be created, it's hard to root for a country that has won it 2 times in a row, both 2024 and 2025, but you know, as it stands right now, a lot of rebuilding had to be done for the South Korea roster to get to this point. And I think it's very, very easy to root for them in this juncture. But on the side of Brazil, I mean, they're bringing in their A-game. Shakyu, Izzy, and Korean Malico. This roster has done absolute numbers this series. They have taken so many breakpoints off South Korea. So many exclamation mark picks have been won by this 4-3. I think South Korea definitely have quite the run for their money going into this tiebreaker. Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, both teams here kind of sending out their control roster, right? They put in these exact same rosters for the No Mod 4, and South Korea was just barely able to clutch up on that. So we do have to see how both of these rosters perform when more mechanics is thrown into the mix. And here we go into Camellia, Energy Drinko, our semi-finals tiebreaker.
By RLC, no less. Oh my goodness. willwam, it's been a ride. Here we go. Into the first KI of the map. All about these cutscenes. That's going to be the main attraction for these players to contend with early sections of the map. Just everybody getting used to the BPM. And as it stands right now, everybody holding on to their combos. Izzy, Korean Malico, and Amami. Oh no, not Amami Kokoro. All miss. 2 misses coming in from Brazil as I say that. So now it's 1 FC to 3 going in favor of South Korea. They have Shakyu surrounded, moving past this first KI and into the next quarter.
3 FCs for South Korea just against the lone FC of Shakyu there. That control section really tripping Brazil up there. We just have to hope that South Korea can find some breaks soon. But it's Korean Malico on the side of Brazil instead. And it's already a 60k score lead for the side of South Korea on this tiebreaker. I mean, there's still plenty of time for a comeback to the mid, but South Korea are just looking so dominant as of right now.
Yeah, for what it's worth, it might be looking very favored towards South Korea, but I honestly say if you want to miss in this match, the start is the best place to do so. We're moving into a bit of a breakdown. We're moving into more and more flow aim. But South Korea is completely unfazed, holding a 3-way 99 FC from their entire roster. Shakyu trying their best to hold back the floodgates, the last vestige of hope from Brazil. But how far can he go? I don't know. As a 100k scoreline, South Korea manages to surpass that margin. And they're just going to continue to go into the next KI, all about these slow aim patterns. Amami Koko might find the miss, but he still has 2 FC right there to back him up. However, Izzy and Korean Malico are waiting for their opportunity. We're moving into the second third of the map, and there is still so much room.
Yeah, but Shuk is the one on the side of Brazil to break that FC gun is absolutely devastating. South Korea still holding never mind, just 1 on Petite there as Alex Smith finds the break, but it's ridded by Korean Malico on the side of Brazil, and now it is just a battle of those 2 large combos. Izzy versus Petite on that full combo for South Korea as we get just past the 1/3 section of the map. But like, there's still 130k score lead there this early into the map. That's gonna be such a tall feat for Brazil to try and take back.
It's gonna be a very tall ask. We move into the build down section. We move into the lower BPM alt section. And Amamiya Coco is gonna find a miss. So does Alegrissimo. So now it's really just a battle of two large combos. Petite, however, is holding a very, very sizable lead against Izzy, about 100k score lead. Just off the back of his massive 99% ag and the FC to boot. We move into the second half of the map and time is running out. I don't quite know if there's going to be enough time for Brazil as the scoreline continues to look to move towards the South Korean side further and further. I just don't think there is any room where Brazil can find any sort of angle as long as Petite continues to hold.
But that just has to happen, right? Petite still has to hold this full combo, but just isn't giving it an inch at all. Still holding that full combo, 99% and counting. 2k combo. I mean, there's just not much Brazil to do. And with that break on Izzy, on the last hope for Brazil there with Petite, still holding into this last quarter of the map, and a 200k score lead for South Korea, I don't think is going to happen, unfortunately, unless we see an absolute meltdown for South Korea here.
You know, well, I was there when South Korea first lost their first tiebreaker against France. And if I remember correctly, it was either Petite or Sherbert. Either Petite wasn't there or Petite was really struggling on the round 16 tiebreaker. But this time, the hunger is there, the fury is there. Going into the last quarter of the map, 1.5k combo and counting the highest in the lobby. And it's not even close. Highest accuracy as well, only being matched by Alegrissimo on his very own team. And we're going into the last sections of the map. It's just gonna be the Petite show. Going into the last flowing sections of the map as well. Completely unfazed. I mean, what can you even do? That's almost a 400k score lead for South Korea. And as the map builds down, willwam, what do you even do against what Petite is going as on screen right now?
I mean, yeah, it's just all eyes on Petite right now as we get into this final section of the map. I mean, the scoreline doesn't even matter now. It's just a matter of whether Petite
3K?
clutches out to the very end. And he's still holding. Everyone will find
don't do this! Don't do this!
Everyone in the lobby finds this. But Petite is still holding the FC right to the very end.
We're not real! Petite, can you do this? Till the very end, last line is coming. Don't choke it now, don't choke it now, don't choke it now, and he does it! He does it, willwam, he does it! 3.1k combo!
Yes.
Almost 99%. willwam, I think we overheated in the commentary booth. Oh, it is hot in here.
Incredible.
Yeah, willwam, I think they won the tiebreaker. I think they won. I think they just won. Holy
I mean, with that FC on the tiebreaker for Petite, South Korea is going to be the one advancing forward. I mean, Brazil was just looking so strong there until the very end. South Korea fought their way to the tiebreaker and absolutely dominated. And they are going to be moving on in the winner's bracket to face either Germany or Romania. And unfortunately for Brazil, we will be saying goodbye to them, even though they put up such an amazing fight.
Oh my god, don't even get me, man.
Incredible. This match has been absolutely incredible, and it's just so sad that we have to see them go. But
yeah,
congratulations to South Korea.
They were behind on every single juncture of this map, but when it mattered the most, Petite stepped up. He rose up to the challenge and, well, he delivered us quite the masterclass, I'd say, willwam. I think that might be top 3 scores of 3WC full stop. Oh my goodness. That was like 7.6 stars. Like, oh man, I gotta rewatch that, but that was incredible. But any last words for you, willwam?
No, I mean, that was just incredible. I'm still just in awe, and I'm excited to see how South Korea progress into their next match. I mean, Germany and Romania are certainly going to be tough opponents for them. But given their performance in this match, I'm incredibly excited to see what they do next.
We pray that South Korea gets to the point where they can start genuinely demolishing people on the control. That's the strat, guys. That's the strat. But jokes aside, do hop on over to our A stream to catch the France versus Austria-Hungary match. That's going to be seed 11 versus 16. And do just show your support for 3WC by getting a country banner to support your very own country so that, you know, you can help 3WC run. And your support is always greatly appreciated. But until then, my name has been gamicrayola, his name has been willwam. You are watching the 3-digit World Cup B stream, and we will see you when we do. Bye bye!
Bye bye.